What is going on, guys, and welcome back to another quarantine and car talk. And today's topic is really interesting and something that I researched quite a bit, and that is, of course, how can you build a safe nitrous kit or piece together a safe nitrous kit for your car, whatever type model that may be. And we're going to go through kind of what nitrous kits are, the different types of nitrous kits, and why you would want to do one versus the other. Also go into all the accessories, because there is a ton of accessories for nitrous kits, and all of these can sometimes overcomplicate your build or sometimes be necessary to help you go ahead and make safe, reliable power. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and give everybody a few minutes. So if you guys are watching this after the fact, after the live, go ahead and skip to about the 3-minute mark as we let people kind of join in. In the meantime, what's going on, Law? How you doing? Hope everyone is staying safe and, nothing is directly impacting you guys, and hopefully, we can kind of use this as a time to de-stress and not worry about what's going on around the world. So wait for a few more people to join in here in the next minute or two. What's going on, Flying Tarpoon? How you guys doing? Looks like we got about 5 people in here. Give it about another half of 30 seconds or so. See if more people join. That way I can go ahead and get started with today's topic, which, of course, if you guys saw the title, is all about nitrous and how to build a safe nitrous kit. If you guys can, make sure to hit the thumbs up button. What's going on, ZL1? Man, it's coming along. I worked on it today, and let's just say all of the hardware, all the lines for the fuel system, all that is finally done, installed, routed. So I'm pretty much done with installing all the hardware, all the main pieces. Now it's time to do all the electrical, which is very much the funnest part about doing a nitrous kit. So that's hopefully going to happen here on Saturday, is when I plan on taking that whole day to go through and do all the electrical and, of course, record for you guys. I hope I can get the video out tomorrow about doing the fuel system and installing all that and how I did all that, making up the fuel lines and the fittings and all that. And it's quite a lot, guys. It's taken me since Monday, working on it probably every other day to get it done. So a lot of back and forth and double having to redo a few things, but nonetheless, you guys won't need to see me struggle through all the redos, but we'll see how I get it done. Anyways, all right, guys, we've got about 7 people on, so let's go ahead and talk about the nitrous kits, what they are, what different types they are, and just how you can build a safe nitrous kit. So let's get to the basics here first. First of all, there are 2 main types of nitrous kits. You have a dry kit and you have a wet kit. Now, there's 2 different benefits to each, or so, I guess you would say. A dry kit is a lot simpler to install and a lot less parts that can fail. A dry kit consists of just a single nitrous solenoid, your bottle, your bracket, and either a nozzle or a plate, depending on how you guys are going to be wanting to get the nitrous delivered to your engine. typically a dry kit, if you're doing a dry kit, you're probably going to want to also do a nozzle, which is the easiest route to kind of simplify things. You don't have to worry about a plate or anything. And that'll get you going pretty quickly. Now, the wet kit, a wet kit means that you're not only spraying nitrous, but you're also spraying in the extra fuel to go along with it. So that kit typically comes with a nitrous solenoid and a fuel solenoid. And most kits will come, at least vehicle specific, will come with a T adapter fitting that basically will go in between your fuel line at the engine to tap off of there for your fuel. And it goes into your solenoid, and then from there your controllers or whatever way that you power your relays will send the power, and the fuel will get sprayed along with the nitrous. A little more complicated of an install because you have extra pieces that you have to worry about, but nonetheless, it's still a very good kit. Now, there's really no right or wrong way to go about it. The only thing is, if you have a dry kit, you are now relying solely on the tune to add the extra fuel. So typically, a dry kit is going to be used whenever you have, let's say, a dedicated drag car that you don't want to really drive around the street, or if you basically want to use nitrous every single time you go wide open throttle, because that's kind of how you have to set the tune up. You have to set the tune up to say, okay, between this RPM and this RPM at wide open throttle, I needed to give so much more fuel to allow the air and fuel ratio to be where it needs to be for nitrous, and you don't lean out your engine. And so that right there is the big drawback to a dry kit, is that you're basically running, if you don't have your nitrous connected, or you have your bottle off and you floor it, between that RPM range, you're going to be probably quite a bit rich, and the car's not going to run as well. And so that is why most people don't really go that route anymore. And you see the most popular type of kits now being the wet kit. Now, because the wet kit allows you to add the fueling with the nitrous, using the different jets that are provided with most kits, you're able to fine tune the car and say, I want 50 horsepower worth of power. And you really the only thing you have to worry about now on the nitrous side, or on the car side of thing, on the tune side of thing, is how you're going to pull back the timing to make sure that you don't have any pre-detonation from spraying the nitrous and the extra fuel. So that is a lot less headaches, I guess you could say. So when you pull back the timing, all you're doing is reducing the amount of power that you're going to get from your car without nitrous. So if you were doing it with the tune and you pulled the timing back, let's say 2 degrees, it's about 2 degrees for every 50 horsepower of nitrous that you add. So 50 shot would be 2 degrees, 100 shot would be 4 degrees, and so forth, moving up. And so let's say if you were set up for a 100 shot of nitrous with a wet kit, you can just set up the tune to pull 4 degrees of timing within that certain RPM range every time. And what happens there is that now your car is pulling the timing. So even when you're not on the nitrous, when you don't want to run nitrous and you don't spray, your car doesn't have the maximum horsepower available. But there are a few things that you can buy, or accessories that you can buy, that will allow you to kind of circumvent that and basically have your car running at full power all the time. And then when you spray the nitrous, have the timing pulled back automatically only when the nitrous is activated. And we'll talk about those right now. So let's go see a few questions here. V8 Freak says, following your kit soon. Hey man, I'm hopefully, I can show everybody how it all works and how to install it on the Camaros. Like I said many times, there's not much space around the engine bay and under the car to really route a lot of this stuff. And especially with me doing the dedicated fuel system, it's extra lines and all that. So definitely a little bit of a challenge to get everything fitted, but I think we're good to go now. Ben Noble asks, what are your thoughts on the 2020 Camaro LT1 model? Ben, those cars are actually really good. I mean, it's a very lightweight V8 car. If you're wanting to do a drag car, that is probably the best route to go because it has the V6 brakes. It has a lot of this stuff. You might even be able to fit a 16-inch wheel or a 15-inch wheel without too many changes or a cheaper brake kit. The weight's already down because it's not used. It doesn't have all the extra goodies, and basically, it's a great car if you want a drag car. Now, if it doesn't come with a bunch of the coolers and things like that, so if you're just going to use it for quarter mile, eighth mile racing, awesome. If you want to use it for like track racing or things like that, then I would spend the extra couple $1,000s on an SS or a SS1 Elite at that point. Kyle Walker, how's it going, man? ZL1 4Play says, when using it during a race, when do you spray during the race? So if you are roll racing with nitrous, it all depends how you have it set up. And I'll answer your question here in a bit once we start talking about all the different accessories. So remind me if I don't answer your question, but I'm start talking about all the accessories and explain how all those work, and then that'll kind of help answer some of those questions. Jose in the house, what's going on? Get a N gauge and swap between NA, tune, and all motor. Yeah, you can definitely do that, but what if you're just cruising down the highway and someone pulls up on you? You aren't going to be able to say, hey, man, hold on. I'm going to pull over and swap out my tune, and then we'll go back on on the street. It's definitely helps, and it's definitely doable, especially with the N gauge now that you can have tunes loaded up and swap them out pretty quickly. That wasn't really available before, and you kind of had what you had. So, but the N gauge does help, but it's not going to be all the time, I guess. And that's what I did when Project Awesome. You won't have a full open bottle always either. That is true. That is very true. So, talking about the open bottles and stuff like that, let's go on to the accessories that you can get on nitrous kits, because even though nitrous kits, when you look them up online, you see that they have different prices, and the prices may seem relatively inexpensive. That is the base price, and there's a bunch of options that you can add on to those kits that brings the price up quite significantly. So from Nitrous Outlet, the kit that I bought was originally around, I want to say right under $800 or about $800 for the plate kit, which came with the plate so that the spray could happen right after the throttle body. And then it also included the two solenoids, the brackets for a bottle, and then you have to then add the option of a bottle, which can run between $100 to $150, $200. You can get a 10-pound bottle, you can get a 15-pound bottle, and then I think there's like a lightweight version, very expensive. I went with the 15-pound bottle, which is the biggest one, so that I wouldn't have to worry about running out of nitrous and having to fill up every other day or every weekend or so forth. So a 15-pound bottle is large, but it'll last a little bit longer than or 50% longer than a 10-pound bottle for sure. When I had my previous nitrous kit, the 10-pound bottle would last me at least a weekend or two. So I'm hoping this one will last me at least 2 to 3 weeks. Now, you get the bottle, then you have the option to buy or add a purge kit, which I strongly recommend because you want to make sure that there's no air in your lines. Every time you close the bottle and then open it back up, there's a chance for air to get in the lines. And a purge kit allows you to basically evacuate all that air and make sure that the nitrous is all the way in the line right at the solenoid whenever you actually activate your nitrous solenoid. So definitely recommend a purge kit. And there's different options. You can get just a standard purge kit, or you can get the Big Show purge kit, which basically is just another big nitrous solenoid right next to the nitrous solenoid, so that it can flow quite a bit more nitrous and make a big cloud into the air or in front of you, however you have it routed. That's what I have that's what I ordered, the Big Show purge kit, and I can't wait to get that all routed and show you guys because it looks really awesome. But you get the option of the purge kit, and then I believe that's about it in terms of the main accessories that you get. So when you're all said and done, you're looking at about $900 to $1,000 for the base kit. And that kit will get you pretty much where you want to be for the most part. 90%, 99% of the people are going to be. That's all you're going to need to get the hardware installed. Now the base kit comes with a little like micro switch, which you're supposed to install behind the driver's gas pedal, and basically it's supposed to be able to, when you completely floor it, press the switch and trigger the relay signal to the solenoid. And that is the most primitive, basic way of doing it, guys. You basically put a little micro switch on behind your gas pedal, and when you arm your nitrous with the little arming switch, which is just going to get 12-volt switch power, when you arm it, that sends the power to the back of that micro switch. And then whenever you floor the gas pedal, the switch closes, and then it completes the circuit and sends the trigger signal to the relay that is going to power your solenoids. And that is the most basic form of nitrous control, and it's not that the best, and I do not recommend it if you're trying to be safe and run a safe nitrous kit. So ditch that stuff. You don't want that. What you really want is a good nitrous controller. And a nitrous controllers, there's a lot of different ones. There's some very high-end ones that can cost up to $1,000, and you can get some for some smaller ones, basic ones for the $200 to $300 range. And I highly, highly recommend if you're starting off, you definitely do not need the $1,000 range one. It's got a lot of nice features, but they're not really needed. And it's got all these extra features that end up overcomplicating your nitrous system. And sometimes all the extra sensors and all the extra stuff that you end up trying to get just end up causing the system to not work. So you don't really need the very, very high-end one, but I would still recommend getting a nitrous controller in. There's very different ones, like I mentioned. You have the most basic ones will be ones that use the throttle position sensor and an RPM signal, and can do both wide open throttle and RPM range controlling. And so what that does, it lets the car, when you activate your nitrous, it turns your controller on, and then the controller is reading the info from your throttle pedal position, and it's also reading the info from the car's RPM from a coil pack or from a pin on the ECU. And what it does is you can program it to say, okay, whenever it's wide open throttle and my car is between 3,000 RPM and 6,000 RPM, I want the trigger signal to go to the relay and start spraying. That is at what you definitely want to have, guys. You definitely want to have that RPM window switch and the throttle position in one. And Nitrous Outlet, I believe, has a nice simple one that's like about $200, one of the cheaper ones that I've seen. And it's got quite a bit of features where you can even have it lock out after a gear, so basically it won't spray until it goes into second or third gear if you don't want to launch off the line, and spray right off in first gear. But what it doesn't do is have progressive ramping, and that is perfectly fine. If you're running a 100 shot or 125 shot and below, then I wouldn't worry about progressive controllers or progressive ramp rate controllers, because the car's not going to have that crazy hit jerk with a 50 or 100 shot of nitrous that you wouldn't want that progressive ramp in. So even up to 100 shot, I would say don't even worry about a progressive controller. Just go with a standard RPM and window switch controller. Now, if you're going to be spraying higher than 100 shot, 125 or 150, which I plan on doing, then you're going to want to do something like a progressive controller that you can ramp in over, half a second or 2 seconds or a tenth of a second, the power. And basically all it does is it pulses the solenoids to ramp in that shot. So it doesn't give you just an instant 150 shot. It will ramp it in over a certain set time. So that is what I would recommend if you're going above 100 shot. And that's what I did. I have the NOS Mini 2 controller. And so that is one of the things that you definitely want to get for controlling when your nitrous activates. So definitely want to go that route. So then I mentioned that you had the ability to do the timing through the tune, But now they also sell what's called timing retard controllers. And Lingenfelter, the one that I got was the Lingenfelter RPM limiter / timing retard box. So it does two functions. And that Lingenfelter timing box is a box that basically just plugs and plays in between each coil and has inputs that you can set from something like a nitrous controller or from, you know, a button or something that will basically activate its effects. And one of the effects that it has is the RPM limiter, and that is used primarily by people with manual cars to have a consistent launch. They can have it on like a push button and hold the button, and it basically will hold the RPM, and then they let go and it'll start revving out. Or you can do it, as at least what I plan on doing with that is using it as a two-step just to shoot flames, hopefully. I really don't have, I'm an auto car, I don't really have a need for an RPM limiter, but to just try to spray and shoot nitrous out, shoot flames out the back of the car, hopefully. So I'm gonna have that input wired separately on a switch that on a window console switch that I ordered. So that when I activate that switch, it'll be in RPM limiter mode, and when I can turn it off, you know, the car is back to normal, and it's going to be separate from the nitrous system. Now, the other main feature that I bought that kit for, primarily for use with the nitrous kit, was the timing retard function. And basically what that does is, because it plugs into every coil, it is able to actually reduce the timing that if the car, let's say the car was giving it 25 degrees of timing, when you turn the nitrous kit on and you floor it and the controller says, here we go, we're triggering, and starts sending power to the solenoids to spray the nitrous in the fuel, that same controller can send an output that will go feed into that timing box, and that box will activate the timing feature. And basically, even though my computer is telling it 25 degrees of timing, the box is going to actually reduce that to just 23 or 24 or 23 or 21 degrees of timing, or 19 degrees of timing if I'm spraying 150 shot. So it'll do that only while the car is spraying. So basically, I can run the car as it normally is with the nitrous kit off, and have it running dialed in NA at full power all the time. And then when I turn the nitrous kit on and I actually run and it starts spraying nitrous, the controller, the window switch controller, will actually send a signal that will to the timing box, and the timing box will pull the timing that I need to make sure that the car does not have any issues and get really overheated, so high cylinder pressures and all that. That is the way that I did it. Now, again, you can do that through the timing and save yourself some money, but I wanted to have full power for if I'm just driving down the street or down the highway and someone wants to race, I can race them off the nitrous bottle and have a pretty fair race, or really good race as far as how much my car does without nitrous and just with the package it has. Or if we're out and about and I have my bottle open, I can just flick the nitrous on and then run it without having to worry about having to swap tunes or anything like that. So that is very, very important. Now, most people nowadays are running E85 through their cars, and that's just kind of varies, at least with the newer generations, 6th gen Camaros and even like the Mustangs, they all run E85. It's not that hard to do E85 on these cars, very simple. But what happens with E85 is, if you're going to be using a nitrous kit that's a wet kit, well, E85 can fluctuate quite a bit at the pump. Sometimes you get true 80% or 85%. Sometimes you'll get 70% or 50%. And depending on what percentage you get, it'll affect the rate, the mix of the fuel and the nitrous that goes into the car. And so it can be very dangerous to run it off of the main fuel line if you're running E85, because the nitrous isn't gonna, the jetting, or the little jet inside the nitrous plate is not gonna know that you have 50% nitrous or 80%, 50% ethanol or 80% ethanol of fuel coming in. It's just going to spray the same amount of fuel, whether it's 50 or 80, and you definitely need a different amount of fuel for the different percentages. So the one thing that was recommended to me, and that more than likely I would recommend to everybody moving forward if you want to do a nitrous kit and be very safe, is go ahead and get a standalone fuel system. Now, I went with the specific Camaro standalone fuel system, but you can get fuel systems for about maybe around half the price of what I paid for mine. That isn't fuel specific, but will still work and do everything that you need. And the reason that you want the dedicated fuel system is because you can now put in whatever you want. You can put in 93 octane, or you can put in some race fuel, which I strongly recommend for nitrous standalone fuel systems. In my case, I plan on running C16. And the reason you want to do something like a race fuel to mix with your nitrous is because the one thing that's very, very important is to try to prevent pre-detonation from high temperatures in your cylinders. And that has been a big, big issue with cars that get boosted and don't have enough fuel, that heat up the temperatures of the cylinders, and then you end up with pre-detonation, destroying the rings and destroying the pistons. And it can happen with nitrous as well. If you have too much nitrous and then you start getting really high temperatures, then the fuel, E85 does a good job of the pre-detonation, but to make things even safer, going with something like a C16, very high octane, 116 octane race fuel will really help the car and the engine survive longer. And so that is my plan with the direct dedicated fuel system. I'll be running C16. And just to put in perspective, guys, with C16, you can actually run up to a 100 shot, 150 shot even at some points without having to pull back any timing. That is crazy. Now, to make my system even safer, I plan on still, even though I'm running C16 race gas, I plan on pulling back the same amount of timing as if I was running 93 octane. Now, it might not gain me the same amount of power. I could probably get, with C16 and keeping the timing where it's at, I could probably make more than whatever the advertised power is for a 100 shot. But with the C16 and pulling the timing, I'm just doubling down on the safety of the car and ensuring, pretty much almost guaranteeing, that the car won't have any pre-detonation and run a lot healthier and be much happier. So definitely recommend it, guys. If you are going to be running E85, I strongly recommend that you get a dedicated fuel system just for the nitrous kit. And the wiring can be kind of daunting, but once you start going point to point and routing everything, I mean, you're good to go, and it's not that difficult to follow. The biggest pain and the hardest thing about all this, guys, is routing everything and figuring out where you're going to mount and where things are going to be placed, because, man, these cars don't have any space. But anyways, there you have it, guys. That is how you can build a very, very safe nitrous kit. So let's go over the final list of things that you would want. And of course, I would start off with a wet kit. If you're running E85, I would strongly recommend getting a standalone fuel system. If you're running 93 octane, then you're probably okay. You won't really need to get the standalone fuel system. But if you're E85, strongly recommend a standalone fuel system. And even on 93, if you just want the benefit of using the C16 to be even safer, then by all means, that's where you want to go. And then you want a timing box if you don't want to be switch swapping tunes back and forth, or have just a single nitrous tune that's going to be pulling timing all the time. You want a window / throttle position, wide open throttle controller for the nitrous, which is basically going to allow you to spray nitrous only between a certain RPM and when the floor is all the way to the ground. And then you want to have at least a 10-pound bottle and a purge kit, so that you can make sure that the nitrous is completely purged, the air is purged out of the nitrous line, and you're good to go when you start spraying. So let's go here, see what we have. Some questions here. Darian Lopez, how much does it even cost to refill your nitrous bottle? So Darian, that's a good question, and something that if you plan on running nitrous for a while, would probably be beneficial to buy what's called a mother bottle, or a big mass, like 60-pound bottle of nitrous, and then refill your own bottles at home. But generally, I've seen places charge between $6.50, $7, all the way up to $10 a pound. So if you have a 10-pound bottle, that's like almost $70. If you have a 15-pound bottle, over $100. So it can get quite pricey. But if you get the mother bottle, you can then buy the nitrous kind of like its wholesale price at almost, let's say in the $3 range, give or take a dollar or so, $3 to $4 range, and save yourself quite a bit of money. Let's see, Russell, any fear your O2 sensors with the C16? No, because it's gonna, first of all get burned, and I don't have cats, so it'll flow pretty quickly. Now, over time, if I was spraying it every weekend, then maybe I'd probably start looking into it. Maybe just checking the logs and seeing how the O2 sensors are reading, if there's any deviation between one bank or the other. But not really. For the amount of the time that I'm going to be actually spraying, and with the free flowing exhaust, I think I'll be perfectly fine. And Jose says $5.50 to $8 a pound. I mean, yeah, that's what I've seen. And so even at $5.50, you're still looking at about almost $100 for a 15-pound bottle. But it'll get you through I think it's going to last me maybe a month or so. Who knows, maybe more. All right. So anyways, guys, that is how to build a pretty safe nitrous system. Now, there are a few other kits like the controllers that cost $1,000 that allow you to have inputs for things like nitrous bottle pressure, fuel pressure, to do things like cut off the nitrous. And those are just overcomplicating your system. I've actually put a fuel pressure safety switch in line, which is actually reminding me, is another thing that you really want if you're doing a standalone system, is make sure you put a fuel pressure safety switch in line, so that if you happen to be running out of the fuel, or there's not enough fuel in the tank for the pressure to maintain, and you don't have nitrous, then you don't have fuel, then you definitely don't want your nitrous spraying. So fuel pressure safety switch to cut the power to everything is definitely strongly recommended. Do you have to eliminate the cats? So Jose's right. If you want to shoot flames, you definitely want to get rid of the cats. I would say if you are running race gas, then I would definitely eliminate the cats. And overall, just to reduce that back pressure of that extra power, definitely you would want to remove the cats. And that leads me to a couple other options that are nice, but not necessarily exactly needed, guys. And that, of course, is the nitrous heater blanket that you can put on the bottle. Again, nitrous, the guidelines say that you want to have about 950 psi of pressure in the bottle to maintain good nitrous feed. And you don't want too much pressure, and obviously if it's too low, that means your bottle's running out, and you don't want to keep using it because you're not going to have a consistent spray of nitrous. So people have gone the route of putting a heater blanket, which if the nitrous starts running low and your pressure goes low, you can use a heater to build that pressure back up to make sure that you can basically utilize the most amount of nitrous in the bottle, versus having to maybe refill when there's a couple pounds left because the pressure is getting low. That's a nice feature to have, but not really needed. I might end up adding something like that in the future if I keep the kit long enough and it works well, but it's not needed. I'm actually repurposing that heater button on my window switch for the two-step. So if I do add it, then I'll have to figure something out. And I might swap out the bottle opener switch for the heater kit at that point. And then the third one is, of course, the automatic bottle opener. Now, that one is a lot of people say it's nice to have that because at any given time you can just press the button, open the bottle, and then boom, close it, and you're good to go. But you don't want. I feel like having the automatic bottle opener is basically going to make me want to use the nitrous more often than not, and for the dumb reasons of just making a pull down the highway for no reason. So I want to keep the nitrous use not to a minimum, but only for when I really truly want to use it, like at the track or if I'm going out to Mexico. Jose says, put the bottle in a bucket of warm/hot water before you go out and play. Yep, yeah, you really that's a good thing to do, and it'll get that pressure up, and you'll be good to go. So that's about it, guys. That's nitrous kits in a nutshell. What's going on, GP Racer? How you doing, man? And so, as long as you have the proper equipment and you don't use just the bare minimum, I mean, nitrous is a fun power adder that will be very, very reliable and have you running really, really well off and on the track. I've seen cars running about half a second faster for every 50 shot. So if you were running, let's say, a bone stock Camaro that runs a low 12, high 11, with a 50 shot would be running a mid 11, 11.5, 11.6. And with a 100 shot, you could be down low into the very low 11s, and 150 shot, and you're at, the 10s. And again, if you've got something like that timing controller box that will pull the timing for you without having to adjust the tune, and you've got a standalone fuel system and everything, you can get a bone stock car without a tune and throw 150 shot of nitrous and go run, 10-second quarter miles without, doing, without having to basically void your warranty for tuning the car. Crazy. That's what they're doing with these Corvettes, C8 Corvettes that are doing nitrous. I mean, they're probably going out there and throwing in the timing box and pulling the timing back to allow them to run the 50 shot of nitrous without causing damage to the engine. Jerry Arce says, if you want safe nitrous system, it isn't cheap. That is correct. So let's talk about the prices. My nitrous kit, all in all, ended up coming in at about $3,500, guys. That is pretty pricey, but then again, I did opt for some options that you don't need, like the bigger 15-pound bottle versus the 10-pound bottle. I went with the Big Show Purge kit, which was twice the price of the normal Purge kit. That was $75 more. The bottle was another like $100 more. So that's already almost $200 there. The timing box, again, you don't really need it if you're going to be getting the car tuned for nitrous. That was about $400. The progressive controller, that was $300, but you can go with something like just a standard RPM and throttle position window controller that doesn't have the progressive ramp for about $200. And then I went with the specific standalone kit for the Camaro SS from Nitrous Outlet, and that kit was about $500 to $700 more than a standard just universal kit from like Nitrous Express that you can use and route your whole fuel lines. So I did spend quite a bit extra for my kit, but I wanted something made for the car that was going to fit right and going to just look somewhat OEM still. So that is why mine was a little more expensive, but I think for around $2,500, you can have yourself a very decent kit that'll be able to still be safe and fun to use. And of course, you can go even higher, but not really needed. The bad horror stories that you see of guys using nitrous are from guys that probably bought the base kit and just used that little micro switch for the back of the pedal to get their nitrous to activate. So don't be afraid of nitrous. That's all I gotta say. All right, guys. So that is my nitrous talk for today. Anybody have any questions? I'll give a few minutes here, and we can talk about any questions you guys might have. Questions on the nitrous or anything of that nature that you guys would like to kind of get cleared up if I wasn't able to explain it well. Jerry, you are correct. You are correct. I mean, it's a nitrous kit is never going to be 100% safe, just like a supercharger is never going to be 100% safe. But you can always add things and to make it safer. So Nitrous has come a long way from back then, and you basically can have a nitrous kit now that will do everything for you. One controller that I am very interested in using that I don't know how, I have an idea of how it could work, but the theory is not completely, I guess I need to maybe just pony up and buy the controller later on in the summer to just kind of try it out. But Nitrous Outlet has the Pro Max controller, I believe, and the Pro Max controller has something that's really, really cool where you can basically do the progressive shot, but based on RPM one. So you can have it, instead of a time-based progressive controller, you can have it RPM-based progressive controller. And that, what it does there is you can basically say, I want it just doing 30% of the nitrous shot for the first, or ramp in. I mean, it's got a bunch of nice, you can do a nice little graph on it. But my theory is I can use that to make, and you basically can, it lets you have like 5 different tunes or 5 different like settings. One can be for a really, really prepped track where you want it to just do the full shot right away because you're going to hook. One can be for a shitty prep track that ramps in the nitrous a little slower. Well, what I want to do is basically have throw in maybe a 150 shot of jets, both the fuel and the nitrous of 150 shot. And then basically use each setting to say, okay, well, for my 150 shot, I'm going to do the full 100% duty cycle of the solenoid, and it's going to spray, and the fuel solenoid will follow the same duty cycle as that, so it'll run, boom, the 150 shot. But then if I want to run 100 shot, all I have to do is say, well, during the Windows time, I just wanted to spray 40% or let's say 35% or 40%, because I don't think the duty cycle is linear in terms of the horsepower. But you can say, I'm only going to do 50% duty cycle throughout the run. So then you basically are using technically half of the power, even though you have 150 shot jets. And then you have another one for just a 50 shot, like 20% duty cycle. And so it'll pulse and only do 20% of the power. I think that'd be an awesome way to basically have something like a turbo boost controller where you basically can say, okay, I'm running out in the streets. I see a car. It doesn't look that fast. I'm just going to do it 20%. And you run them. And the controller itself comes with a little screen that you can do on the fly. Then you basically run the car with 20% duty cycle on the solenoids, so not the full 150 shot. And you see that, man, he actually beat me by like just a fender. Boom. Let me just tap a button. Now I'm gonna use 50% of my solenoid, and now you're beating him, and things like that. So I feel like that's how it could work. But I would need to get my hands on one and just try it out. Unfortunately, it's one of the pricier ones. So who knows? Maybe I'll do it later on as I get more comfortable, and I'll try it again later on down at the end, sometime this summer. Yes, exactly like that. Kind of like a boost by gear or RPM, but for nitrous. That's exactly what it is. You're basically jetting, you're turning up, you're putting the biggest pulley or the smallest pulley that you have for the maximum boost, but you're cutting down the duty cycle, or basically in turbo terms, opening up the wastegate faster to reduce the amount of max power that you're actually seeing from that shot. So I think it's pretty cool. I don't know exactly how it'll work. I do know that the duty cycle and horsepower curve between 0 and 100% duty cycle over horsepower is not exactly a linear curve. So I guess I would have to get it and just play with it, get it on the dyno, put it at 20% duty cycle and see how much more power it made, then do 30% or 50% and then 75% and so forth. And then we can see we'd be able to extrapolate a curve and see, okay, at 100%, obviously the car gained 150 horsepower. At 75%, it still gained 125 horsepower. At 50%, it was still 100 horsepower. And then, so it might not be exactly, half of it, but you on a dyno session, we'd be able to see, that curve and make a good estimate of how things are. And if the good thing about it is you can actually independently control the nitrous and the fuel solenoid. So you can have outputs for both the nitrous and for fuel solenoid with that controller. So if you feel like the AFR is a little too lean, then you can just, for that setting, for that 75%, you can 75%, you can actually increase the duty cycle of the fuel only, so that you inject a little bit more fuel and get it richer and so forth. So there's a lot of fine tuning you can do with that controller. And I think it would really be something that you could set up and dial in and use, almost like having turbos and different boost levels with a boost controller. But that'll be something that I might look at way down the line, maybe at the end of this summer. All right, guys, anybody have any questions or anything like that? Jerry R says, so do you tune your own car? I've seen your other videos and you have your laptop and whatnot. I do not actually tune my car, but I do use my laptop and HP tuners to data log. And the data logs, I have a wideband sensor always plugged in and feeding that data to my data log, so that I can send it to my tuner, and then my tuner just we send back and forth emails, and he'll update my tune via email. I send him a data log where he can see basically what my car is doing. He can see my air and fuel ratios as I'm going into wide open throttle, and he's able to adjust the tune and make changes to it as we see fit for the car to be running safely and running good. Any other questions? Jerry asks, what's all done to the car? All right, so the Camaro is a heads and cam car. So it's got ported heads. It's got a custom cam from Pat G. It has the MSD ported intake by Prey Performance. It has a solar engineering throttle body, LT5 throttle body, 95 millimeter throttle body with the solar engineering performance throttle body spacer made specifically for the MSD. I'm probably going to have to end up getting rid of that spacer and getting the grooves machined out, because I kind of come into reduced space for my intake elbow with the nitrous plate. It fits, but I don't feel too comfortable with it. And I've got a Rotofab dry filter intake, E85, and long tube headers with catless X pipe. So I would say it's not that much, but it is pretty good setup I have. No converter, no stock converter. It does have the underdrive pulley, I believe, but that's about it. Flying Tarpoon says, a ballpark labor cost to have a system similar to yours installed. Whew, man. After the amount of labor that I've been going through and the amount of work that it takes, unless the shop has installed one before and kind of already knows how to do the routing, how to do the wiring and all of that, I can see them charging quite a bit to do a nitrous install. I mean, I can see easily between, $800 to $800 or $600, $600 to $1,000 of labor to do it, because it is very labor intensive. Like I said, a shop might be able to do it a lot faster, but if you're doing everything and you don't have good instructions, like nitrous kits usually don't, it's very labor intensive. So I can see them charging between $600 up to $1,000, maybe more, to be honest, to install that. Jerry says, any future suspension mods? Not at the moment. I actually do want to get some drop springs And maybe depending, I'm not going to be spraying off the line, so I don't think the car will have that much of a hard time launching. But if I do, then I'll probably maybe get a couple of suspension pieces in the back, trailing arms, things like that. But probably going to be doing just drop springs, make it look a little bit, just a tiny bit nicer. Flying Target says it's actually better than I thought. Yeah, like I said, I don't know quite exactly how much they would charge, but I can definitely see it being, you know, close up there in about the $1,000 range, if not almost more. It's very labor intensive, and I mean, shops have a lot more tools and stuff, so they might be able to get it done quicker, but definitely hard to do. What kind of ET do you think with the nitrous kit? Law, depending on the shot that I go with. So I'm thinking between, if I do like 100 shot of nitrous, the car should be running almost a low 10, if not possibly, you know, in good weather, a high 9. I think it's very doable. The car was already running in the high 10s to begin with, so then that was with throttle body closing. I'm sure the weather, obviously this summer the weather is not going to be like the winter, so I can expect 2-3 tenths slower. So let's say I'm still in like the high 10s. 100 shots should be about a second increase. So low 10s, maybe high 9, and then with 150 shot, I mean, I should be able to break a 9. GP Racer, what's the difference between dry and oil filter, and which one do you suggest? So a dry filter is kind of somewhat reusable. You can get compressed air and kind of from the inside out filter and clean it up. But most people recommend usually with the dry filter after, say, 35,000, 50,000 miles, you buy a new dry filter and you're good to go. The dry filters that come with like the Rotofabs are like more high performance dry filters, so they actually flow very, very well. People used to go with oiled filters because they were the ones that flowed the most. Paper filters just could not kind of keep up with the flow of the oil filters, but nowadays the dry filters can perform just as good, if not better, than an oil filter. And the thing with the oil filter is they are completely reusable, so you can actually wash it all down, rinse it down completely, and then let it air dry and spray some more oil lubricant around. But the thing with that is if you spray too much oil, then it can get sucked in and cover your MAF and cause all kinds of problems. So I would say, if you're going to pick between the two, I would go with the dry filter, just because of you don't have to worry about re-oiling it again. Whenever I had my other cars and I had oiled filters, I never washed or rinsed them out. If I ever had to change it out, I just bought another oiled filter. So I would go with just the dry filter. You never really take advantage of the re-oiling and filtering or washing of those filters as much as you think you would. All right, guys, got a few more minutes, and then I'm going to be checking out here. So anyone have any last-minute questions? So just kind of some updates on the channel. Hopefully you guys see a video tomorrow of the many things that I did on the car, installing the fuel system, the routing all the lines, the nitrous line. I know I put out a video back on Monday, I believe, where we installed the solenoids and kind of routed the bracket and the bottle. So now we're going to be doing the next video tomorrow, which will be the final installation of the fuel system, drilling out holes, routing lines, and all that stuff. Jerry, I've been trying to do this at 9 p.m. every Monday through Friday, every day. So see you guys at 9 p.m. Thanks a lot, guys. You guys have a good one, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow's video is going to probably, we're going to be talking about what are the essential tools, or what tools I recommend that you have in your garage if you want to start tackling a lot of these car mods yourself at your garage. So tomorrow's topic will be about what tools I have in my garage, and what I recommend everyone have in their garage if they're going to be doing a lot of the work on their own. So with that said, guys, I hope you guys are safe. Keep your heads up, and hopefully we can get through this quickly, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.